Davie becomes the third shipyard to build for the Royal Canadian Navy, and the Navy is finally looking to buy submarines. This is the Great White North Report. So Davie Shipyard out of Quebec joins Irving and Seaspan in the National Shipbuilding Program. I thought this was already a done deal myself, and I'm quite surprised that they just announced it. I thought we already decided like 2 years ago, and that they were already signed contracts to start building ships. And to find out that they just decided to make them the third shipbuilding, I've been calling for a fourth one and possibly a fifth one. Not that there's a lot of shipyards that can build warships right now in Canada, but I was quite surprised to find that Davie had not yet joined the National Shipbuilding Program. So 5 years ago, it turns out that 5 years ago, the Liberal federal officials were not too keen on adding Davie as a third shipyard to our shipbuilding program for the new Navy, because it's expensive, and they had other programs, more useless programs, that they wanted to pour money into. Now, when Trudeau finally signed off on it, and he was at the little ribbon cutting ceremony or whatever the hell they had, he called it an economic and political significance to Quebec. So basically Trudeau is looking to garner votes in Quebec for any upcoming elections. He can point to that and say, hey, we got jobs in Quebec. But really, he's been dragging his heels over a long period of time, 5 years. You got to remember, this national shipbuilding strategy was conceived by the Harper Conservative government 11 years ago and was fully embraced by the Liberals after they did a review of it. Now, at the time, the Conservatives chose to exclude Davie Shipyard due to its financial instability, as it was still under bankruptcy in 2010-2011. So that's why Davie was never chosen. They considered it, but they moved on because of the financial burden. 2018 was when Seaspan and Irving were unable to meet demands, that the Liberals began looking seriously at adding a third shipyard. 2018, 5 years ago. That's the problem with Canada and our Canadian government. We're too moribund. It takes forever to make a decision on something. And it wasn't until the summer of 2019 that the Liberals announced that they would add a third shipyard, and they were going to do their due diligence and inspection by the end of 2020. Obviously, that deadline was extended several times. It's now 2023. And in that time, the federal government basically spent millions to refit and extend the life of Coast Guard cutters that are now averaging 40 years. I'm not even going to go into the frigates, how old they are, or the submarines that we bought from the UK. And when you think that, hey, they finally announced it, now they have to go back and negotiate to build 6 icebreakers and 1 polar icebreaker. Something that was promised about 2 years ago. I tell you, our Canadian government is so monolithic when it comes to our national defense. But they're so quick to change the name of a school and get rid of statues and spend money on so many useless programs that don't benefit anyone. But when it comes to the defense of this country or our commitments to our allies and to the overall peace and security, it's like watching an iceberg melt, which I know is a little bit more quicker nowadays, but still. Or watching the Rockies erode would be a better apt word. Or waiting for the Leafs to win the Stanley Cup. So I already thought this was a done deal. It shouldn't have taken this long to approve of a third shipyard. Davie was obviously looking for contracts 11 years ago to help them get out of their bankruptcy problems, their financial stability. Nothing helps that like a government contract. Now, I know one of my subscribers, Mobo, he asked me to look into the submarines, and I was looking into it, and I could only find articles from like 2021 until recently, a couple of days ago, this came out. The Canadian Navy is looking to buy 12 submarines for $60 billion. Perfect number, because I've always been saying we needed at least 12. Now, let's take that with a grain of salt, because $60 billion today, with the way our government works, is going to be $120 billion in 5 years. And it won't be 12 we get. We'll only get like four to six. We really need 12. Now, they think the cost could climb to $100 billion as military equipment procurement programs are often over budget, and they are. You say $60 billion now, it's probably going to be $80 billion. They're saying $100 billion. The Navy has created the Canadian Patrol Submarine Project to examine all conventional options available, gathering information and conducting analysis of potential submarines that meet the Royal Canadian Navy's requirements. Again, it's going to take time. It'll be 2 years from now before they even make a decision. By then, you might have a new government that might change its mind. Just like our 15 frigates that we've ordered. The cost climbed from $25 billion to more than $80 billion. Because we take too long. We should have had a third shipyard 5 years ago, already building ships, and we could have had some of those icebreakers done. Now, we do have problems with training enough submariners to crew its current fleet of 4 boats, let alone 12. The thing with that is simple. You either introduce conscription and make it a weighted lottery draw, like they do in hockey, where if you don't work, and you're on welfare or some kind of government assistance, you're one of the first to get drafted. Or they can increase the pay substantially to make it more attractive. Offer free schooling, offer free housing, accommodations, and certain. And when we get 12 new submarines, we should get brand new ones. Of course, we're not going to be building these. We cannot build. For some reason, Canada can't build submarines. I find that hard to believe. I think we can build small ones, like submersibles, but nothing big. And it's something we should be looking into, building our own. But again, the cost. So the 4 Victoria-class submarines that we purchased from the Royal Navy, they've seen limited use since 2017. And one of them hasn't been over to sea over the last 5 years. And we spent $1.9 billion on submarine maintenance with 3 boats totaling 529 days at sea. In 2019 and 2020, no submarine operations were conducted by Canada. That is shameful. The Liberals bought these because they thought it was a cheaper option than going out and buying brand new ones. So they're saying the procurement of a new submarine class will take a minimum of 15 years total from project establishment to first delivery and could exceed 25 years depending on the adopted procurement strategy. Jesus Christ, it takes that long. What you do? I could probably do it in like 2 months. I could go online, look at Jane's Book of Ships, read the description of a submarine, go on. Then also go look over various submarine types from our allies, mainly the UK, the United States, France, even Norway or Sweden, Australia, Japan. Look over those design types, find out which one serves us best. Start asking them how fast can you deliver. Because when we build it now, it'll be cheaper than waiting 15 years, when the price will double due to inflation. Is it worth it to buy new submarines? Of course. I've always said we needed 12. 3 in the Arctic, 3 in the Pacific, 3 in the Atlantic, and 3 in dry dock as a reserve force or getting fixed. Always have 3 active at all times in each ocean. Do they need to be nuclear? No, not necessarily, but there was a time where Canada actually looked at that. Back in the late 1980s. But it is time for the Canadian government to get their head out of their ass and do things a little quicker. Do important things a little quicker. Hell, they audit my taxes much faster than that. Why can't they put a little more emphasis on our national defense instead of wasting so much time and money debating these things? It shouldn't take that long. So I am happy to see that they are looking at new submarines, though not the time frame. And I am glad that Davie finally joined the shipbuilding program. There are a few smaller shipyards that do supply like small things to these boats, the Arctic Patrol boats that are being built in Halifax. I know there's another shipyard in Nova Scotia that's supplying the life craft and rescue craft for them. That's what we could be doing, having other shipyards build certain parts of a ship to make it faster because it's taking too long. The only other option is to buy it right away from another country, brand new. It'll probably be done faster. Anyway, any Canadians out there, let me know what you guys think of the developments in the Canadian Navy and how the Canadian government works in its mysterious ways. Leave comments in the comments section. Subscribe if you're new to the channel. Until next time, this has been the Great White North Report.